Hello, welcome to the first in a very short series I'm going to do, specifically about strange Part 1 questions that have appeared in the IELTS test over the years. I did this because recently I've been doing a few IELTS classes, and I found that in Part 1, when students have to talk about music, books, sports, there's no problem. But as you probably know, there are some IELTS questions that are a little bit unusual. So we're going to look at some examples of these and practice them, get some ideas about them, just in case that you come across such a question in the examination. You might feel a bit more confident and have more ideas about how you're going to answer that. So let's start off now today. The first one I'm going to do is about rainy days. Let's start now. So the topic is rainy days, and as always, the first question in Part 1 is always a fairly general question that can be answered in a few sentences. And the question we have this time is, what do you like to do on rainy days? So maybe you like to go to the cinema, or perhaps you prefer to stay at home reading, maybe even go to the mall. The sample answer we have here, a short one, is: on rainy days, I sometimes like to stay at home reading. At other times, I prefer to go to the cinema with friends. That's a short sample answer. You can probably think of another one and maybe make a note of it in the comments below. So the next question is, in which season do you have the most rain? And that could be spring, summer, autumn or winter. And as a sample answer here, we have, in my hometown, summer is the rainiest season, especially during June, when it rains every afternoon. That's a basic answer. You can add more information, but that does answer the question. Now, one of the most common types of question you're going to find in all IELTS Part 1 topics is, what's your favourite something and why? So what's your favourite clothing, why, favourite music, why, etc. For rainy days, that's a bit unusual, but we can look at it anyway. Because what's your favourite type of rainy day? And you'll say that's a very strange question. But there are differences in the rain. So in terms of intensity of rain, you've got very heavy rain, where you've got downpours, whether it's pouring, it's pelting, it's torrential, or you've got other weather where it's a little bit lighter. So you can say light rain, maybe it's spitting, maybe drizzling. Also, you've got words that describe the time of the rain. Does it stop or doesn't it stop? If it stops and starts, stop, start, then you can say it's showery, or you can talk about broken or patchy rain. On the other hand, if it doesn't stop, you can say you would talk about incessant or persistent rain. Now, there's also the why, and that talks about the emotions that rain makes you feel. And for me, it depends if I'm inside or outside. If I'm outside, I prefer light rain. If I'm inside, I prefer heavy rain. But generally speaking, I prefer heavy rain. And here are some adjectives that we can use to talk about rain. And for me, it's a positive thing. So I would use some positive adjectives here. So I would say I like days with heavy rain because I like to stay inside, and it makes me feel very calm and introspective, spiritual, even romantic. But if you're more of an outgoing person, you're not going to like that. So you would say, in that case, I prefer light rain because on days with heavy rain, I feel depressed, lonely, lethargic, and perhaps uninspired. So the next questions are the prefer questions, which are also common in Part 1. The first one we have here is a simple one, which is, do you prefer rainy or sunny days? Again, you might like both of them, but you have to give some preference here. So you could say, for example, in general or on the whole, I prefer rainy days, and then you give a reason why. Again, you can use the vocabulary we had before. Or you could say, I prefer sunny days, and you can think of words with the opposite meaning. There are some examples here, but I'm sure you can think of others. Another prefer question here is, do you prefer to spend rainy days inside or outside? I think when they mean inside or outside, I'm guessing here maybe inside would be maybe in your house, whereas outside would be, for example, at a cinema, not actually standing in the rain. You might say you'd like to be inside because you can just relax at home. Or you might prefer to be outside because it's a good chance to go shopping, going to the cinema, catching up on some bowling, some other sporting activities that you can do inside. It's a little bit of a strange question, I do admit that. If you do have some better ideas, please put them in the comment section below. Now, this is a slightly more interesting question here. The last question in part 1 is more like a part 3 type question in terms of it being a little bit more difficult and requiring longer answer and not actually just talking about you. This is about your country in this case. So it says, does rain have a special significance in your country? Traditionally, rain has been related to floods. There have often been gods relating to rain dances, the bringer of life. Maybe something to be feared, to be respected, to be loved. For example, in the UK, I think nowadays rain simply has the meaning of being useful for farming, for healthy grass, for farming crops. But in other countries, if one thinks back to the Nile, the old days of the Nile flooding and the rains coming down, it had a much bigger meaning. I don't know in your country. I would be very interested in this one. If it does have a special meaning, you could put it in the comments section below. And the last question here, which relates to the previous one, is obviously, why is rain so important for us? We need rain for the food that we eat, for the water that we drink. I think for our sanity, we need water. There's something very cleansing about it. Again, quite a difficult topic, I think, rain, but... And in a moment, I'm going to choose another topic on a very different subject, which is the topic of birds. Birds.